Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Pointless Top 10, a show where we make top 10 lists out of pointless things. Why are we flying by pointless statue in Booty Bay? Because inside pointless things are treasure. Let's begin. 10. Number 10 is the Royal Library located in Stormwind, and just like the humans, it's kind of generic and boring. But it does have a lot of cool history behind it. So after the Second War, the Book of Medivh was stored here for a period of time. Alterac spies stole it the same day Pargath Throatsplitter and Terran Gorefiend, what a name, and other Death Knights launched a raid on the castle to get it for themselves. The Horde agents found proofs linking Alterac to stealing, and so left the library before reinforcements could come. But aside from that, the library also has an extensive collection of scrolls, tomes, books, and texts on a whole bunch of historical stuff. Plus, maybe the most important part, Harrison Jones teaches archaeology in the library, which, as somebody who does not frequent the Royal Library, I did not expect to find Harrison Jones here teaching archaeology, but here we are, he's here. There's also a woman reading to kids, so this is really just a generic library with a lot of history behind it. But you know what? That's good enough for number 10. 9. Number 9 is the Algathar Academy Library, which is located near Valdrakken in Dragonflight. And this is a really cool looking library. You've got these lanterns all over, you've got the big walls of books, you've got the floating books flying around, you've got the big stairwell leading to even more books. It's a really cool looking library. And according to Kamora, who is a Drakthir located in the library in charge of archival studies, the Academy's library is spectacular, as there are books there that even the Azure Archives Annex of Valdrakken do not possess. Under the care of the librarian Hopastella, it is necessary for the Academy's members to obtain a library card in order to borrow the books, which I just find really funny for some reason. I don't know, it's just when I picture in my mind World of Warcraft, I don't genuinely picture an orc going up to a dragon to sign up for a library card. You know what I mean? It's just like, excuse me, I'd like to sign up for a library card. Like, it doesn't feel like something in World of Warcraft. I don't know, I just think it's funny. But this is a pretty cool library, and that's why it's number 9. 8. Number 8 is the Dire Maul Library, otherwise known as the Athenaeum. And the Athenaeum is a library that also has a ton of history behind it. So this is where the Shendralar remain in seclusion, storing knowledge in the multitude of shelves in a large room. And if you don't know who the Shendralar are, they were a secretive highborn society who dwelled within the Athenaeum. After being expelled from their ancient city by the Horde, they were accepted back into the Night Elven Society shortly before the Cataclysm. Also, during the Fourth War, Rathian traveled here to learn more about the Old Gods and the Black Empire's dark magic in order to find a way to defeat N'Zoth and turn his powers against him. He also mentioned in his journal that when the Horde invaded Dire Maul and the Highborn fled the ruins, they burned down the Athenaeum. So I don't know if that's kind of like a Library of Alexandria type thing or what, but I found that pretty interesting. But aside from all that, I think the place just looks really cool as well. You got the big dragon skeleton hanging from the ceiling. There's kind of some artifacts just scattered about. Plus, I always remember in Classic WoW coming here to turn in the Librams or whatever they were called. So that gave me some nostalgia as well. So that's why the Athenaeum of Dire Maul is number 8. 7. Number 7 is the Seers Library, which is the base of leadership for the Scryers and located at the top of Shatrath City. And one cool thing about the library is that in the middle of the library, there are several bookshelves that can actually train you in all professions, which I actually love, the fact that you have to go to the library to read about and learn your professions. I think it just kind of gives that roleplay game vibe, which is why I like it so much. There's also Lore Master Skosiris, I don't know how to say his name, but he says that even the Grand Libraries of Silvermoon City pale in comparison to this library, which I don't know if I believe him. It feels like Silvermoon City would have more, but I don't know. What do I know? I'm like, all right, maybe he's right. But what I love about this place is how many things that are just spinning around. Like, you have the big light fixture on the ceiling, or it's not really a light fixture. It's like the big planetary thing that's just spinning around. You've got the bookshelves that are rotating around, and I guess you just grab a book and you're like, hey, I'll read this one. It seems kind of inconvenient because you would think when you're picking out a book, you want to take your time, look over all the books, be like, what am I looking for? This is just like it's spinning around. You're like, okay, I'm going to pick that one. Oh, wait, yep, it just spun around. Okay, I'm going to wait for it to come back. Like, it feels unnecessary. It feels like they're just doing it for show, but you know what? It does look pretty cool for show. And then up top, there's a bunch more bookshelves, which kind of remind me of vending machines now that I'm looking at them. In fact, this entire place just kind of reminds me of a cafeteria now that I think about it. But I will say, it's a pretty fancy cafeteria. And you can go get a glass of wine out back. So you can get a glass of wine, pick up a random book off the spinny shelves, and just sit down and read, which actually sounds pretty relaxing. So that's why the Sears Library is number 7. 6. Number 6 is the Hall of Explorers. And the Hall of Explorers is located in Ironforge and is the headquarters of the famed Explorers League. And every archaeological expedition organized by the Alliance is coordinated from here. But the big thing about the Hall of Explorers is the giant library. The library is actually the centerpiece of the Hall of Explorers and contains the museum as well as a vast collection of tomes and knowledge. And if you're in kind of a slow walk roleplay mood, you can actually just pretend you're at a real life museum and just walk around and read all the little signs about all the eggs and the fossils and the relics and just be like, yes, this is quite interesting. Or you could just walk around normally as well. You could do both. And then the actual library room also looks really cool. It's got the big iron bookshelves, clearly because it's iron forged, so they got to make everything out of iron, right? And it's got the stairs leading up to the books and the cool floor pattern. It's really cool. In fact, this museum has the same dragon skeleton as the one in Dire Mall, but apparently it's a pterodon skeleton. So that made me curious. How is everybody finding these pterodon skeletons? And it says this intact pterodon skeleton was recovered from the remote Ungoro crater. Based on the skeletal structure, it is clear that this specific genus has not yet been encountered. This skeleton could have been preserved for any number of centuries beneath the region's rich soil. So, like, did everybody just go to Ungoro Crater, start digging up pterodon skeletons, or is it just like the elves and the dwarves? I don't know, but either way, that's why the Hall of Explorers is number 6. 5. Number 5 is the Sepulchre of Knowledge, and the Sepulchre of Knowledge is a library located at the northern end of the Fungal Valley in northern Maldraxxus. And according to Wowpedia, it contains records of mortal souls who have arrived in Maldraxxus, histories of great battles, weapons, and combatants, and most valuably, the military writings of the greatest tactical minds to have ever served among the Necrolords. But what I love about this library is the aesthetic. You have this green glow kind of all around you, and then you have the bookshelves, which are made out of bones, it appears, and then you've got a bunch of candle lights, you've got these floating tattered books flapping around. You even have chairs that are made out of bones. Like, they went all out with the bone furniture in here. Like, the Necrolords were like, you know what? We need bone furniture. Like, we can't have any other type of furniture. It has to be bone furniture. And you know what? Like I say, anytime something from Shadowlands makes the list, that's pretty good, because, you know, Shadowlands. And that's why the Sepulchre of Knowledge Library is number 5. 4. Number 4 is a really interesting one. It is the Scroll Keeper's Sanctum, which is a giant 3-level library in the Temple of the Jade Serpent in the Jade Forest. And what's so cool about this library is the amount of scrolls that are here. Like, there are scrolls in the bookshelves, there's scrolls on the floor, there are scrolls literally coming down from the ceiling that are gigantic, there's scrolls scattered about, there's scrolls that are literally making up the pillars of the room. Like, there's an insane amount of scrolls in here. But I was curious about the actual lore of what was going on here. So according to the adventure guide of the dungeon, it says, rising high above the east coast of Pandaria, the Temple of the Jade Serpent stands as a sacred monument to the legendary Pandaren Emperor Xiaohao's victory over the Shah of Doubt thousands of years ago. Recently, a disastrous conflict in the Jade Forest unleashed the Shah, and several of the entities have raided the temple's most treasured stores of wisdom and knowledge. So that's why there's a bunch of crazy stuff going on here in all these video clips, but there's also a floating fish over there. That's pretty cool. But I really love this place. I love the windows. I love the aesthetic. Like, it's just a really cool library, and that's why it's number 4. 3. Number 3 is the Scarlet Monastery Library, and it's the Scarlet Monastery Library. I mean, everybody knows about it. In fact, some people know way too much about it because they've probably ran this over and over again to power level back in Classic WoW, but it is a really cool library, and if you don't know, the Scarlet Monastery was once a proud bastion of Lordaeron's priesthood, a center for learning and enlightenment. But with the rise of the Undead Scourge during the Third War, the peaceful monastery was converted into a stronghold of the fanatical Scarlet Crusade. The Crusaders are intolerant of all non-human races, regardless of alliance or affiliation, and they believe that any and all outsiders are potential carriers of the undead plague and must be destroyed. One of which is at the end of Scarlet Monastery Library, which is Arcanist Doan, and he is the keeper of the monastery's library, a guardian of the arcane that the Scarlet Crusade is rumored to distrust, yet He is indeed a trusted official of the Crusade, keeping a vital key that grants access to the Scarlet operations across the Plague Lands. However, in the modern Scarlet Monastery, Flameweaver Kogler is the final boss, and he is responsible for the destruction of many priceless artifacts, including almost all the papers and books that told the real story about the Scarlet Crusade. So there's a lot of history and nostalgia behind the Scarlet Monastery library, so that's why I had to put it at number 3. Plus, I really like the stained glass windows up top too. Those are pretty neat. So that's why the SM library is number 3. 2. Number 2 are the Guardian's Library and the Guardian's Study, one of them being in the Karazhan raid and the other being at the Return to Karazhan dungeon. And the Guardian's Library was the private repository of arcane knowledge held by Medivh deep inside his Tower of Karazhan. And this probably is one of the biggest libraries in World of Warcraft. I mean, there's books everywhere, there's secret doors of books, there's a giant book door, there's bosses behind the books, there's so many books. And then you go to the Guardian's Study, and it's also filled with a bunch of books. There's a lot of cool lighting, and it's a beautiful place. Like, everything is aesthetically pleasing. It's really cool. But I got 2 things to complain about, and both of them are unrelated to libraries and pointless, making them perfect for this video. Number 1 is I had to do the chess event for pointless top 10 beds, and it was a terrible experience. Do not do chess event solo. It is so bad. That's a warning, and I hope Blizzard just lets you skip it at some point. Number 2 is the Westfall story is so bugged out still, and you have to, like, either nuke everybody down real quick, or Tony gets to 1 HP, and then you have to, like, log out. Unless you have Shadow Meld or Feign Death, you have to literally log your character out, get him out of the dungeon, and then go back. It's so dumb. It's so stupid. Blizzard, please fix it. But these are really cool libraries, and that's why they're number 2. 1. And number 1 is the Scribe Sakellum, which is actually pronounced Sakella. I didn't know that. I had to look it up. But speaking of looking up, when you look up here, you're like, oh my god, look at this. There's so many books. There's floating books. There's just layers and layers of books spiraling all the way up to the top. Who knows how far up it goes? I don't know if anybody's actually glitched out and, like, gotten to the top or something, but it is pretty insane. But there's actually some quests where you get to get on the ladder and you float around and you get to pick out books from up top and just look around. It's really neat. So out of all the libraries, it might not be the most spacious library, but it's probably the library with the most books, and it's the most insane library out of all of them. And that's why it's number 1. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this episode of Pointless Top 10. If you want to see more Pointless Top 10s, go watch Pointless Top 10 Beds. That's one I mentioned about Karazhan that I had to do chess event for, so please watch that so my suffering wasn't in vain. Or was in vain, I don't know, whatever. And then go check out Pointless Top 10 Dinosaurs. That was a good one because we talked about fossils earlier in the video as well. Also, consider supporting the channel on patreon.com/Crendor or by becoming a channel member. Okay? Okay. See ya.